Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. So looking at our use case that we're going to try to address today, we have a fictitious company called XYZ Consultants, and they track their potential new deals within Salesforce on the opportunity object. All right, now each type of work or each type of service that they deliver, they keep track of on the opportunity as a product, right? Now, what they want to have happen is that when the opportunity becomes closed won, they want to make sure that they can create a new project record automatically. And then for each of the products they had over on the opportunity, they want to create that as a separate work stream underneath the project so that they can do things like, keep track of, what resources are working on that or, files related to that work stream. So basically keeping it broken up underneath the project. All right. Now, a couple of prerequisites that we're going to look at before we jump right in here, right? So the first thing is that everybody at this point should have a playground set up within Trailhead. If you don't have that set up, like I said, we'll share the recording, share the presentation, and if anybody has any questions after the call, of course, we can always schedule additional time. But within that playground, at this stage, you should already have our prerequisite package installed, right? And if you're not familiar with this, from within your playground, you can just go up to the gear icon in the top right. You can go to setup and you can confirm that you have your package installed by typing in installed package within the quick find here. And you should see that Salesforce Mill and then today's date there. Okay. And the version that you should have is 1.1. All right. Now, if you have any issues with that in the chat, I pasted this a couple of times, but I'll throw it in there again. That's the link that you would need to install the package, right? If you don't already have it. And within your playground, you should have this playground starter app, and there should be that tab here for install package. And that's where you would actually paste that link to install, all the prerequisite objects and fields and things like that. All right, so going back here, the other thing that we want to do here as a prerequisite, we want to make sure that we add the projects related list onto the opportunity page layout. All right, so if you know how to do that, go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, if you're not sure, you can kind of follow along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into setup, and I'm going to go to my object manager tab, and I'm going to search for the opportunity object. And on the opportunity page here, I'm going to click on page layouts. And if you know what page layout you have set, you can just go right into it. Like I know it's opportunity layout, but just as kind of a best practice, I always click on that page layout assignments first, just to kind of see where all my layouts are. And then I'll click on it from here, just to make sure I'm getting the right one, right? And then from the page layout, we're going to go to related lists, and we're going to grab that projects related list and drop that down there. And while we're here, we also want to make sure that we have the products on there as well, okay? And then, of course, once you're done there, you can just click save. You can click yes there, and there we go. All right, so we added the products or the projects, and I'm going to say products and projects interchangeably about 400 times during this call. All right, so now that we have that on the layout, we're going to go to our next step here, and we just want to make sure that the working existing solution that I have included as part of this package for your reference, we just want to make sure that that's turned off, okay? So the way that we're going to do that, if we jump back into our org here, we're going to go from within setup, we're going to search for flows. We're going to go onto the flow page, and then you should see this right here, this create project and work stream for one opportunities. And you just want to confirm that that is deactivated, right? So it's not turned on. And if it is for whatever reason, when you did your installation, if you click over on the right side here, the dropdown, and go to view details and versions, you can just come in here and you can click on deactivate here just to turn that off, okay? All right, so now that we've confirmed that that is turned off, we can actually get into building this flow. Okay, now before I actually go into the steps of building the flow, I just want to kind of acquaint everybody with where we should find all these objects and fields. So within your app launcher, within Salesforce, we actually, if you just click on view all, you should see one in here for Salesforce military office hours. And if you click on that, this should have all the tabs that we need for the work that we're going to do today. All right, so what we want to do, we actually want to find an opportunity record. So if you don't see any in your recently viewed, just go ahead and change that to all opportunities, and then you should see a bunch of data in there. And if you click on the opportunity, you just want to make sure that we have an opportunity that has some products assigned. And if the opportunity that you're looking at doesn't have products assigned right now, you can go ahead and add a few of them, right? So just from that related list, click on add products, and then just go ahead and add a few products onto the opportunity. All right. And then because we just added that projects related list, you should see that there now as well. And we also have that projects list, or I'm sorry, the tab at the top here as well. And if we click into that, you can see right now, we just created this thing. So there's actually no projects in the system. All right. So that's kind of our baseline. We have an opportunity with some products assigned, and we want to make sure that the stage also is not closed won, because that's going to be part of our logic that we're going to work on as well. So this will be our test record. All right. So I'm going to go back into our presentation here. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a record triggered flow. Okay. So basically, the way we want this to work, when somebody comes in here and changes an opportunity to close one, we want that to trigger some logic that's going to basically build our project and create all of our work streams underneath that project. So again, if we go back in the setup, we're going to go back to our flows here, and we're going to create a new flow. All right. Now, from your side, you can call this whatever you like. But just make sure that we select record triggered flow. So these are the types of flows that are going to get triggered when you make a change to a field, or a value changes on the opportunity. That's how we're going to fire off this logic. Okay, so we select that, and then you have an option here. Traditionally, I would always go with freeform, just because I didn't really like how auto layouts worked and they had some limitations. But I think in the latest release, there's actually a lot better functionality in that auto layout. But for now, I'm just going to go with freeform. Okay. Now, going back to our presentation here. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is update our start details. Okay. So this basically determines what object is this being triggered off of, and what are the conditions that are going to cause it to actually fire. Okay. So going back into our flow, we're gonna click edit here under the start. And in our case, we want to make sure that this is going to fire when an opportunity is either created or updated. All right. And we're also going to say after the record is saved, that's when this logic is going to fire. If we were just updating fields on the opportunity itself, this might be a better option, doing it before the record is saved. But because we're trying to create other things like projects and work streams and things like that, we're going to go with this option for after the record is saved. Okay. And then it's going to ask you what object, right? So in our use case here, we want this to run off of the opportunity object. So if you just start typing in opportunity, you should see that in the list there. Now, we don't want this to run every time an opportunity is created or updated. We only want it to run in certain cases. And the case is when the stage is actually set to closed won. So if you just start searching for stage name, you should see that in the list. And then, of course, we're going to say when the stage name is equal to, and then we want to select closed won. Okay. Now, the other key piece here is actually at the bottom, right? So if you were to take an opportunity and set it as closed won, we want this logic to fire. But if somebody were to go back into the opportunity and edit some unrelated field, we don't want this logic to keep on creating project records, right? So you want to make sure at the bottom, when it says when to run this flow for updated records, you want to make sure that that is set as only when a record is updated to meet the conditions. Meaning that if it's already closed won and you make some changes, but you don't change that stage field, it's not going to keep firing. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And there we go. So I'm going to go back into our flow here. All right. So the next step, now that we have this triggered off of the opportunities, whenever the stage name is equal to closed won, and it's only going to do it when we change the stage name, the first thing that we want to do or have our flow do is actually create a project record. All right. So the way that we're going to do this, if we jump into our flow, we're going to drag in this element here for create records. All right. So we're going to pull that over. We're going to say, create the project or something similar. You can name this whatever you like. And we're going to create one record. And we're not going to do this from from an existing record that we have. We're going to use separate resources and literal values, right? So this is going to let us say, create a project and fill in these fields with these values, okay? So down at the bottom here, we have create a record of this object. So we're going to change this to project, all right? And then for the fields, there's a couple of things that we want to fill in. And I'm going to jump back over to our presentation here. We're going to want to make sure that we set the project name, and then we're going to want to make sure that we connect this to the opportunity object. All right. So if we come back in here for the field values for this project, we're going to want to set the name. So we'll type in name there, and you can select the project name. And then this is kind of one of the key lessons within record triggered flows. Right. So we want to make sure that we set the project name equal to the existing opportunity's name. And the way that we get that existing opportunity name is if you scroll all the way to the bottom here, you see this this kind of special variable here called $record. So this has all the fields related to the opportunity that actually kicked off this flow. So whatever opportunity was changed that started this logic, all the values for that opportunity can be found here. Okay, so we're going to click into that, and we're going to want to use the opportunity name. So you can just start typing name, and we're going to put that opportunity name into the project name. Okay, so that's the name. And then we also want to connect this project back to the opportunity as well. So we're going to select the opportunity field. And in that case, we're going to go back to our $record, and we're going to want to grab the ID. All right, so you can see here, ID, opportunity ID underneath there, and that should be it. All right, so just by setting the name and the opportunity, we're going to click done. So without doing anything else besides just connecting the start to that create records, this could actually be the first point that we might want to actually test this to make sure that it's working. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up here and we're going to save this. And I'm going to call this auto create project and work streams, even though we didn't get to that part yet. We'll put that in there. All right, so I'm going to save that. And then we can actually come up here and we can activate this. Okay, now once this is activated, we should be able to go back into our test record and just see if this is working, right? So if we go back to this, this test record, we got some products here. It's in some stage other than closed one. And if we now set this to be closed one, so set that as the current stage, closed one, and save, assuming we didn't break anything, we should now see that project pop up here, right? So that's like part one of our flow, creating the project. All right, so let me jump back here. Any questions, or is anybody stuck, or did it not work, or you want me to kind of go through anything that we just did before we go on to the next step?
I got stuck on that way back on new create records. When you created a record of this object, selected project, set field value to name, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the value, not seeing that in my pick list. Let's see if I just type in record, can I do that in that field and search for?
So for the value, if you want to type in record, it should bring you to this $record.
Yeah.
And then when you click on that, you should be able to just type in name.
Oh, and then type in name and then select name again. Okay.
Yep. So we're basically setting the project name equal to the opportunity name that we had.
Hey, Bill, can you go back to the waffle pattern at the top and just, I don't know if you can exit out of Flow right now or open up another window, but click on that waffle pattern and show the view all and where view all. It should be right there. Yeah. If it's not there, then I would say it's a package install thing, right?
Yeah. So if you're not seeing that Salesforce Mill Office Hours app, then it probably was an issue with the prerequisite package that needed to be installed.
So I would try to reinstall the package.
And Tommy, I'm assuming that's an answer to a question in the chat.
Correct.
All right. Thank you for picking that up. And let's actually just take a moment real quick. Yes, too fast for me. I am recording this, so if we are going too fast, I'll definitely share the recording with everyone. Let's see, watching now and see later.
Bill?
Yes.
Sorry. What was the second? I was stuck in the same spot. I wasn't able to get that record name. What was the second field value that was needed? Opportunity?
Yeah. So basically, we're creating this project. We're going to set the project name equal to the opportunity name. And then we have a lookup field on the project that we're going to connect back to the original opportunity.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So like I said, if anybody has any questions, we'll pause again in a few minutes. And like I said, we'll share the recording as well. So I'm going to go on to the next step here. Okay. So now we created our project. And the next step is going to be a bigger step, but this is where we're going to want to create all the related work streams for that project as well. All right. And the first part of this is figuring out, does the opportunity that we're working on have any products that are related to it? Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to try to get those products. So over on your elements here, we're going to grab a get records. We're going to drop it over here. And we're going to say get all products for this opportunity. Okay. And okay, that's going to bother me. I'm sorry. I spelled it wrong. Okay. So get all products for this opportunity. And now we're going to get records of this for this object. We're going to say get all opportunity. And again, maybe today I just can't type opportunity products. So if you type in opportunity product, you could also type in opportunity line item. That's either the label versus the API name. But in any case, if you select that, we're going to say get all opportunity products where the opportunity ID is equal to the opportunity that started this flow. And when we want to find the opportunity that started this flow, that's going to be, again, that $ record that we have at the bottom here. And we're going to grab the ID. So we want to find all products where the opportunity ID is equal to the opportunity ID that we started with. All right. And then the key thing here, we want to scroll down and make sure that we check this box here for all records. Okay. And when we have that, we can click done. All right. So, and then we'll connect our create project record to that next step where we're getting all the products. Now, before we do any other kind of logic, we want to make sure that we check to see, did we find any products, right? We have that get product step, but we want to see if we actually found anything. And we're going to do that with a decision block that we have here. All right. So we drag that decision block over. We're going to say, did we find any products? Question mark. And then for the label, we're going to say yes, products found. And we're going to know the products were found. And this is a very common pattern when we work with flows, but we're going to know products were found when we say that the opportunity product, that get all product step that we have here is null, false, meaning it's not blank. All right. So if that thing, that get step is not blank, that means we actually found products. And then as another kind of best practice, I try not to leave any of the default outcomes there. So I'll go in there and we'll actually change that to say something a little bit more intuitive, like no products not found. All right. So this is going to tell us, did we find products? And again, we're going to do that by checking that previous step to see if it's not blank. Okay. So I'm going to click done there. And just like before, we're going to connect the dots there. All right. So let me pause there again. Any questions on that step? How we either get the products and then we check to see if we actually found anything.
So we can get a little crazy with that section right there. We can actually define fields, right? You can get deeper into it. I mean, it's like a rabbit hole.
Yeah, if you wanted to say that get all the products, but instead of getting all the fields, just get specific fields or things like that. Yeah, you could do that.
And I can map that to something else and say, hey, take that field and map it to this guy over here.
Yep.
It's kind of important because it's in one of the super badges. So
yeah, I think
I haven't taken the super badge. It's in there.
Yeah, maybe we need to do like a super badge workshop, just going through the entire super badge. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah. All right, I'll add that. I'll add to the list. All right, so
and I think that was on the exam. The understanding of that I can define a variable, and there's ID variables. There's different variables that I can pick and choose from, and map those variables across from the opportunity to the record. That came out as a question on my admin exam. So it's kind of important to understand that right here in Flows, you can do that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So I'll definitely make sure we include that as part of our kind of next workshop when we go through this.
Okay.
All right, cool. So, all right. So we look for the products. We check to see if we actually found any. And now the next step is we want to loop through each one of them. So essentially for every product that we have on the opportunity, we're going to want to kind of loop through all those products that we found, and we're going to do something. All right. So when we talk about looping through everything that we found here, we are going to use a loop. All right. So we're going to drag that loop over here. And this is probably the easiest one. So I'm just going to say for each product that we found, and then you're just going to select that collection. So all the opportunity products from that get all opportunities step. And that's it. So the loop, I think, is probably the easiest one to set up here. You just select that, your products and click done. All right. So now when we connect our decision over to that loop, you just want to be careful and make sure you have the right outcome. So we're going to loop through them only when we found the products. So I'm going to click done there. Okay. All right. So going back here, now we have our loop. And now this is where it's going to get, we're going to slow it down a little bit just to make sure that we don't lose anybody. But this is where a lot of people get lost when we talk about flows. All right. So before we get into looping through and creating these work streams, we're going to have to create a few variables to help support this, right? Now, keep in mind, there's just like anything else. There's probably 100 different ways that we can do this, or maybe like 10 probably. But I'm going to go with this route. And if anybody has any other feedback, maybe at the end of the end of the presentation, we can go. We have a section here about other ways that we can enhance this flow, and we'll see if we can document some of those other ways, right? But in this case, we're going to create two variables, right? And we're going to need, if we go over here in the flow to the manager tab, we're going to create a new resource. And the first one that we're going to create, it's going to be a variable. And we're going to call this one current work stream, right? So as we're going through our loop, this is going to represent the current work stream record that we're trying to create. All right, so if you go to the data type now, you should be able to select record, and you should be able to search for the work stream object, okay? So current work stream, it's a record, and the type of record is going to be a work stream, all right? And that's it. That's all we need to do for that variable. So I'm going to click done. The second variable that we're going to create, I'm going to click on new resource again, and this again is going to be a variable, and we're going to call this work streams for insert. All right, now I'm sure there's a best practice guide out there, or there's something to do. But whenever I create these variable names, anything that's plural, that means it's going to be a list or collection that I'm going to work on, and I try to keep it singular if it's something that's a single value or single record. So just kind of helps me keep things straight when you start to get like dozens of variables. It kind of helps you out. So work streams for insert, and just like before, we're going to say a record of type work stream. And in this case, because we want to have this as a multiple records, we're going to want to make sure that we check this allow multiple values. So basically turning this into a collection variable. All right, so with that, I'm going to click done. Now going back here, we kind of see the details of both here. Let me just take another quick pause here. Any questions on the variable part? Anybody get stuck on this piece? Again, this is usually if you're going to trip, this is usually the unseen rock that you're going to trip on. Okay, so now that we have our two variables, we'll go to our next step. And this is where we're going to work on that current item, right? So for each product, we're going to want to create a work stream. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back to our elements tab, and we're going to drag in an assignment block. Okay, we're going to put it up here, and we're going to call this set values on current work stream. Okay. And what we're going to do, we're actually going to have three different fields that we're going to set here. And I'm going to just reference my notes here. We're going to want to set the workstream name. So on the variable part, don't get confused by this big list here. What we're looking for is the current workstream that we're working on. So you should see that current workstream under record single variables. Okay, so current workstream name, and you can just type in name and you'll be able to select it. And we're going to set the current workstream name equal to the product name for the current product that we're looping through right now. So if you scroll down again through these, this giant list, don't get overwhelmed, but you should see an item in here for current item from loop. All right, so you're going to click on that, and then this represents the product that we're currently working on. And if we scroll down here, we should be able to just select the product name right here. So opportunity product name. Okay, so we're setting the workstream name equal to that product name. Okay. I'm going to take a quick pause. Jimmy, how are we doing with participants? Everybody's out of the waiting room? Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Bill, I'm sorry.
Awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Jimmy. I have one question. Why exactly do we use the loop? I'm sorry. I think I just didn't get that. Why do you put a loop in there?
Yeah, let me
Can you clarify this? That would be great.
Absolutely. So let me do this. I'm going to select these other two fields, and I'll save this, and then we'll go back. All right, so we'll go back and look at that after we create this. So let's just set these two other fields real quick. So if we look at, we're going to want to set the workstream name, which we just did. We're also going to want to set the project, link it to the project that we just created. Okay, so going in here, I'm going to select the current workstream that we're looking at, and then we're going to want to select the project field. Okay, and we're going to set the project field equal to, and this is another kind of key flow item here. We're going to set the project to the project that we just created as part of the flow. All right, so if we scroll down here, you should see a variable project ID from create the project, and that's where we're going to put into that project lookup field. All right, And then finally, the last thing that we're going to set here, again, for this current work stream, we're going to set there's a field here for, where do we have here? So number of hours, work stream hours, all right? And what we're going to put in there, it's going to be the quantity from that product that we're currently working on, all right? So if we look at the current item from our loop, you should see a quantity field, okay? Now, we'll come back to this if anybody has any questions. I'm just going to click done for right now, and then to answer that previous question, right? So when we think about this flow, how this is going to work, right? So when an opportunity is created or updated and the stage has been set to closed won, we're going to create a project. And then for that project, for every product that's a part of that opportunity, we're going to want to create a related workstream item underneath the project. Okay. So the way that we do that, we actually query all the products that are part of that opportunity. And let's just say that we get, if we got one back, right? So if we always knew that we were going to find just one record, maybe we just go right into creating the work stream. But because we don't know how many there are going to be, there could be, 3 products, there could be 100 products. We don't know. We have to actually get all the products. And then if we have one or more, we actually have to loop through them all in order to create each work stream. So we can't just assume that we're going to find one. If we find 10, we can't just directly create the work streams with those 10 products we found. We have to loop through each one of them and then set the values that we want to have on each of the work streams that we're creating. Okay. That's why we need to have the loop, because we might have 1, we might have 10, we might have 100. We don't know. So this lets us kind of loop through each one of the records that we found and do something with it. Okay.
Okay, so just to clarify, it's for the assignment, right? So that it loops through all of them and then executes the assignment for each of them.
Yeah, so you can see here, now that I connected that, it says for each item. So for each item that we have in this loop, we're going to do whatever logic is connected here. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Bill, one more question over here. We can set some condition also. I mean, if we want to skip some records and based on that is also possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great point. I don't have that as part of what we're doing here, but that's definitely another one that we might want to add to the list later on for ways that we might enhance this, right? So let's just say in our fictitious company, on the opportunity, maybe they have products of 2 different types. Maybe it's like physical products and then there's service products. And maybe when we create our project and we're creating our work streams, we only want to grab the service products, right? So we could have a decision here that says, okay, for this current product that we're looping through, is this an actual physical item or is this a service type product? And if it's service, then create the current work stream, add it to the list, and then so on. So that's a great point. Yeah, that's definitely something that we should add in later on. I'm going to write that down or else I'm going to forget that. So decision for each product. Let's go on. Okay, so going back here, we just created, we updated the values or set the values for that current work stream that we're working on. The next thing that we want to do now is we want to add this to the collection that we're going to try to insert later on. Okay, so I'm going to grab another assignment block here, and we're going to say add current to collection. All right, and what we're going to do, very simple here, we're going to say work streams for insert. So that's our collection that we have here, record collection variables. So work stream for insert, and we're going to add our current work stream. Now, Salesforce will try to trip you up here. When I select current work stream, you see it's going to drop down and show me a bunch of fields. Ignore that. Just click out of that. And we want to add that entire variable to our collection. We don't want to add a certain field, just the entire record. All right. So with that, I'm going to click done. And just like before, we're going to connect the dots here. Now we're going to update our current work stream. We're going to add it to our collection. And then that's what we need to do for each item in each product that we found. That's what we're going to execute on here. So I'm going to try to organize this a little better so it's a little bit more intuitive. But if we kind of think through this logic now, did we find any products? Yes, we did. Let's just say we found 3 of them. For each one that we found, we're going to loop through here, and we're going to set the current work stream, so set the values for the current, and then we're going to take that current and we're going to add it onto our collection, and we're going to keep going. So we'll do that 3 times for each of the ones that we found. And then in the end, after we've gone through that, after we've added it to our collection and we've looped through all the products we found, we're actually then going to actually insert those records and actually create those workstream records. So the way that we do that, we're going to go over here to our elements again, and we're going to grab a create records, and we're going to drop that down here. And we're going to say create work streams from our collection. Okay. And in this case, we're going to create not one. We're going to create multiple records, and it's going to say, well, where are they? What is the collection that we're trying to use to create? And that's going to be our work streams for insert. Okay, so we select that, click done, and now we're going to connect our loop to that create records. Okay, and I went through that a little fast. Let me open that back up. So when we create our records, we're going to select multiple, and then we just select that collection that we've been looping through, all right? Or we've been adding as we've been looping through our products. All right, and you notice that when we connect that loop to the second thing here, the create records, you can see it actually puts that label in there for after the last item. So in this path, we're going for each item, we're looping through, and then once it's done the looping, after the last item, it's going to go to this create record step. All right, now, in theory, that should do it, right? Assuming that I didn't make any mistakes or, grab the wrong field values or something like that, we should be able to test this now. So if we go back into our flow, you'll notice that save is disabled because we made changes to an existing flow. So we just got to click save as. We're going to save this as a new version of the same flow. Now click save, and then don't do what I do about 80% of the time and just start testing and forget to click activate. I don't know what it is. It's like a mental gap here, but click activate so that this updated version is active. And now if we go back to our record that we have, I forgot to reset this after the last test I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that current stage back to something that's not closed. I'm going to delete the existing project that I have. But now this is kind of a record. It's an opportunity. It's got 3 products on here. So what I would expect to happen now is when I change this to closed and select closed 1, I should see that project gets created. And now if we click into that project, we should see that we have 3 work streams that have been added as well. The work stream names should match the product names that we had selected on the opportunity, and the work stream hours should match the quantity that we had selected on those products as well. Okay, so go ahead and run through, make sure give it a test if you're kind of following along, and just let me know if you have any issues or any questions that we can kind of go through in detail.